Hey folks, how's it going? Sorry it's been a while since an update. As you probably guess, over the winter, not a huge amount done on the pond, so not a lot to talk about, but we're getting back into the swing of things slowly but surely. You can see there on the temperature gauge, the pond still covered is 17.4 degrees, and I'm currently getting 17 degrees in the shed here, so it's pond is pretty warm. I started feeding again about, I'd say 6 weeks ago, and there in the last week or so I've been feeding twice a day because the temperature's been up around the 17, so I might as well get growth going when I can. I'm still feeding wheat germ though. I'll put in a bit of more protein over the next few weeks. When we get into May, I have a big bag of protein food there that should get me through the summer, and I have a few containers there of Hikari wheat germ. This beeping, by the way, you hear and this is an annoyance with this thing. This is my water flow meter for the trickle in. I've talked about this before in previous videos. It's currently at about 4.45 litres a minute, which is about roughly 4,500 litres a week, which is 20-ish plus % water change. It's quite useful. It gives me the flow rate, gives me the total amounts of litres I put through the filter since I reset it at its last, the big blue at its last media change, which was about 2 months ago. But the annoying thing is, for some reason, on such a small piece of equipment, the batteries only last about 3 weeks. So every few weeks I come in here, I listen to that beeping, and I have to stick in another couple of AA batteries. So a bit annoying, but it is useful nonetheless. The big blue, as I say, I did do I think I spoke about it the last time. I did do a media change for the active carbon, a bit messy, but nonetheless very doable. I was getting a hint of chlorine with DPD-4 tablets, so the water was turning slightly blue. I will test it again today. I generally test it once a month or so, but it should be fine. I find I get about 100,000 litres or so out of the sort of standard active carbon. That's 2 bags of it I got there. One of it is a friend's, one is mine, so each of those 25k bags does 1 or 2 changes rather, so that's about a year's worth for in one bag for that size big blue. That's the 36 inch one, which I think is the medium size, which most people have. That's the main thing. Other thing I did on the filter was I added some extra media. I've been thinking about doing or talking about doing that for a while. So there it is, bubbling away well, and the medium is on as well. I did remark before that when I drained the filter down a couple of times, just cleaning it out or doing a bit of maintenance, there didn't seem to be a lot of media in it, and I did have the 150 litres that was originally recommended. So I got another 2 bags of this Aquacell stuff from Coastal Koi. Now, as it turned out, only 1 bag fitted another 50 litres, so I have 200 litres in there, which I think is certainly more than enough plastic media. The only thing I found was that the 130 litre pump, which is the larger one here, which was split between my spin drifter and the bio chamber, wasn't enough to power with the additional media. So what I ended up doing was using the 130 purely for the media chamber. So there's nothing connected to it here, if you can see. It's going straight into the media chamber. And then I turned on the 70, which is doing the spin drifter. And actually the spin drifter looks a lot better. I don't know if you remember from previous videos, I wasn't happy with the spin drifter, and I was saying it looked as though there was more air coming out one side of it than the other. And I was worried during construction that some debris had got into the air pipe. You know, it was sticking out of the ground for a long time, you know, when you're doing a pond. Now, I did have it covered, but the cover kept coming off, and I did whatever I could to sort of keep it covered. But I think what was possibly was the issue was that there just wasn't enough air going to it. And my pond is nearly 6 foot deep, and there's a reasonable travel from here, so there maybe just wasn't enough air pressure, and the air was taking the path of least resistance and maybe favouring one side to the other. But with the increased air pressure, it looks a lot better, and I don't have that issue. I sort of had on my list of future things to do was, if I drained down the pond for any reason, was to take the lid off and clean out the diaphragm and whatever else to see if it improved. But it doesn't look as though that was the issue. It was purely the amount of air. I think that's all I've got to say in here. As I say, I'm thinking of adding some ceramic type media along with the plastic. I've read it's not a great idea just to be relying totally on plastic media all the time. I'll go out to the pond now in a second, but my pond is standalone. It doesn't really lend itself to a backy shower. You know, it's not very sheltered, and and I don't think they look great either, not in my design. I know I could put one away from the ponds. I was looking at one of these rotating shower media chambers. How exactly I'd plumb it in, I don't know, but I was thinking of maybe taking away part of the shelf here and just putting it in that corner. But I'll give it some thought. You know, in terms of the filter, again, on previous videos you would have seen, like the filters now is set up about a year in March, and right through last summer I struggled with nitrite. Ammonia went to zero very quickly, but nitrite came and went right through the summer. And I now find that I started feeding again. I've upped the feeding. I'm checking it twice a week, and both ammonia and nitrite have been zero, so that's really good. But everybody I mentioned it to was saying to me at the time, listen, you know, it's a new filter, a new pond, it's going to take at least a year before it matures, and that seems to be the case, and it does seem to be mature. But interested in comments around the rotating shower. It's kind of the same principle as a backy shower. It's just media, except it's in a different container. So it would probably be taking maybe another feed from, I've a blanked off feed there. One of these, by the way, is the middle one is into this pump here, which goes out into the main pond. This one on the side here goes to the back for the waterfall, which is turned off at the minute. I don't use that part during the winter, so it would maybe need to do a bit of configuration here and plumb in the third one of these and having it going with a small pump up to a shower, and then put a T on one of these returns, and it's returning, well, not into one of them, into the main one, so I could use it during the winter as well. Just a T on that it drops back into the main return. But just as I say, it's not an urgency. You know, you'll see my koi are still quite small, but maybe I'll do it this year, maybe I'll do it next year, I don't know. But interested in your thoughts on that. I'll just check my piece of paper. No, that's about it in here. Let's have a look outside. So it's nice in Dublin here today. It's what is it temperature wise? I'd say it's about 16 degrees, nice and sunny. There is a bit of wind there, but not as bad as it was yesterday. So the pond, as you can see, everyone's looking happy and healthy. I did have my Showa here acting a bit strange a few weeks ago. He was twitching an awful lot. Didn't actually see him flatching, but looked a bit irritated. And I did get him out and do a scrape, but didn't find anything. But just keeping an eye on things. You can see as well on the Akamatsuba, he's fairly bad carp pox on one side there. Now I'm reliably informed that that will disappear as the temperature goes up. There's a little bit of it on a couple of other fish. The shag-eye has it as well, but minor problems and nothing really can be done about it. Covers have done their job well, as I say. I'm going to leave them on for another few weeks. It's it's nice during the day, although we did again. We had a really good week there about 3 weeks ago, and it was up around 17-18 degrees some day, and then we got a very cold week where it was struggling to get to 6-7 degrees. So you could be lured into a false sense of security and remove covers. I didn't, as you can see, and I leave them on, I think, until the middle of May, to be honest. I will get a net. I know a lot of you don't like nets, but lots of herons around here, so I do plan to get a net that covers the whole pond right over the back piece as well. So I'll need something that's about 6 meters plus in length. I find with those nets, they're quite light. You get a year, you get a season out of them. The one I took off there last season had loads of tears in it. The heavy net doesn't look well, I find. It's the green light net looks best, although it's not very serviceable. I do have the covers tied down. I mentioned this on the last video. The first storm we had, everything was fine, no issues whatsoever. Second storm, these two lifted, the one at the back of the main pond and the one on the top. And unfortunately this one has a strut here going under the spillway, and it lifted the spillway. Now it didn't break anything, but I think what happened was the Tech 7 or the sealant was lifted under the spillway. Haven't had a chance to have a good look at it. I think when I'm setting up the back pond again and I take the covers off, I'll drain the back completely and get in and have a good look at it and reseal it and put a bit of weight on it or something. But it did lift on one side, I'm fairly sure, because this was moved out. It's amazing, like the weight of these bloody things. As you can see, there's a lot of wood in them, and they most definitely take 2 people to lift them, yet the wind blows in the right direction. So I quickly went out to B&Q and got these anchor bolts and drilled them in, and a bit of rope, so that really did secure them. Just put them in at various intervals, and I don't have them all tied down at the minute because it hasn't been that windy, but just on the worst of the weather, able to put 2 ropes across each of them and make sure they're held in place. And that was about what I've been doing. Is as well at night, because it drops down to about 5 or 6 degrees, I still have my trusty piece of 100mm insulation board here. I use this stuff to do the corners, to fillet out the corners in my pond, and I had a lot of it left over. I had to buy the full sheet, obviously, but it's handy just to pop in there. And by the way, these, because when it was new, it was quite tight, but it's worn over time, being a polystyrene. I know it's not polystyrene, but it's like it. So it tends on a windy day now, I can place it in, but it blows out. So I put these brackets on that just drop down, and when it blows back, it just stays in place. Lots of algae in there, as you can see. I thought the greenness might die down with the covers on, because they're supposed to be UV resistant, that polycarbonate, but it hasn't, not that I'm worried. And I'll give it a bit of a back out. There's a bit of debris. You can just see that even though I have 2 bottom drains and it's turning over at 20,000 litres, it still doesn't lift everything off the bottom. Lifts most things off the bottom, but not everything. So every 2 weeks, and I've done a video on this a while back, I just drain the dirty side of the filter, and I flush my 2 bottom drains into the filter. Not the most ideal way of doing it. It'd probably be better if I could flush them straight into the drain, but it does work. So I just flush them into the dirty side, and then I vac out the dirty side. So it does get a fair amount of of sediment out of them. You know, it's certainly something that needs to be done every 2 weeks, and not something I'd want to be building up. And it smells okay. You know, if it stank would give an indication that there's bacteria building up there, but thankfully there's not. And on the pergola, I've mentioned a few times, we were planning to do a pergola in the spring, but unfortunately the roof on this roof here had other ideas, and we've had problems with it leaking intermittently over the last couple of years, but it started to get quite bad, and we got a roofer out a few months ago, and we're told that the felt was rotten. There was a lot of broken tiles, probably from a window cleaner being up there doing the top windows, and we had to get the whole roof stripped over 3 days, refelted and put back in place. And you can imagine that wasn't cheap, and we're still licking our wounds from that. So the pergola, which is a nice to have and not a necessity, is going to have to wait a while more. In terms of the garden, grass, as you can see, has been hit and miss in patches. I think the worst here is that the dogs come up here and wheeze in the grass, but it's patchily in places. I said last year that when the gardener was doing the grass, we had 2 options: either seed it or get sod, and sod was going to cost about €700 or €800, and we said to hell, we'll seed it. And it's been reasonably good in most places, but it is patchy, so I'm going to have to do something with that. Probably just try down and put down a bit more seed and cordon it off. With 2 dogs, one of them being a very active 11-month-old Rottweiler, so you can imagine he's got 4 paws that are like rotavators. So, you know, even if we wanted to have a perfect lawn, it wouldn't last very long. So still a bit of work to do there, but getting there. And the patio, I'm going to regrout this. It's about 20 years old and it's gone badly in places, so I'm going to do a bit of, I might get this brush in stuff and regrout it. And we've a bit of furniture, so I'm going to do this up that we can sit and enjoy the pond during the summer. We had a plan to do that last year and never quite got around to it. And fish wise, I probably will add 2 or 3 more fish over the summer. Wouldn't mind a goshiki. Probably won't add a kahaku. I have 3 already. I do like that Sankey. If I see another nice Sankey, I might add another Sankey. Kajaku's nice as well, but I'll see maybe an Utsuri. But certainly have the ability. I mean, even if I overstock a bit, there's some I might move on. That Shiro is not looking too bad. He's starting to get a bit of sumi on him. He was quite nice when I got him last year, and then he went completely white, and there's a little bit of sumi starting to come back, but not on his body. I'll see how he shapes up over the next few months. If he doesn't get more sumi on him, I might just move him on and get something else. He's a nice fish otherwise, but not very Shiro in his looks. And all the other fish, there's my goldfish with the tumour, still going strong, still eating. And you can see he's gone down below the Akamatsuba and his koi pox or carp pox. And there's my garden centre koi, looking nice and big. He's the family pet, so he won't be going anywhere, even though he's not a pedigree Japanese koi. I'm sure he's fairly vanilla, but I think he's a Jin Matsuba, if you wanted to put a name on him. Nice fish, but not Japanese. So that's it. If you have any comments or anything else you want to see, let me know. Lots of plans, as ever, for all of us, depending on how the finances work out. But looking forward to a nice summer and getting to enjoy the pond and getting the covers off over the next few weeks. Take it easy. Talk to you soon. Cheers.